Welcome back. Ivan Gopaninko here for the second episode in our Basics to LD series. Last week, we went over what LD was and the very basics, what Lincoln-Douglas debate is, how to do it, what the time controls are, things like that. Today, we'll be diving a bit deeper, specifically analyzing what it is to have a case, where you're constructed. It's spoke about in either way. Let's just get right into it. What is a constructed? So your constructed speech is what you'll be saying in your first time speaking on either side. So for the affirmative, it would be you defending the resolution. Affirmative, again, being the side that's in favor of the resolution or the topic. So in your AF construction, you'll be reading your case, which you can think of it kind of like your English essay, your like debate that you brought from home. Here are the reasons you're going to vote for me. Here's the framework I'm going to use. I'm laying it all out for you, Judge, and this is what I'm going to be defending for the rest of the round. On the neg, it's pretty much the exact same thing. You'll be saying it during your first speech, the negation construction. The only difference is that you will also be rebutting during that same speech, which is why the neg generally has a shorter construction, because they need to have the time to both say their case and rebut, which is why, despite the fact that they have 7 minutes to the AF's 6, they still have to usually make shorter cases, so they have enough time to go against the AF's case as well. But don't worry about that strategy too much right now. For now, what you have to understand is that a case is what you're reading to defend your side of the resolution. It's like your main arguments. Let's go into what are the parts of a case. So your case usually starts with definitions. That would be you explaining what the words in the resolution mean, because generally your judge is going to be a parent, and you want to clarify that some things. Like we're talking about, I don't know, the US should prioritize the economy over the environment. Well, what does it mean to prioritize the economy? Does that mean we're never focusing on the environment? Does that mean only a few environmental policies? Like, what are we talking about? And so in your case, you'll be explaining, first and foremost, what you're talking about. Same thing if someone says, like, a word like, I don't know, overthrow a government. You'll be like, oh, what does overthrowing the government entail? So basically just define the words that you don't, like, that not everyone knows, explain the concepts, and you're golden. We won't be diving any further into definitions because generally they're not that big a deal. Moving on to framework. Framework, like we talked about last time, that's your value and criterion. It's what you're trying to achieve and how you're going to achieve it. You'll say that pretty much first thing after reading the resolution, giving your definitions, so that your judge can know about it and know why you think those are the two best value and criterions for the round. Then you'll go into your contentions. Your contentions are, well, if you've ever argued with your parents, you know exactly what contentions are. They're your primary reasons for why something should happen. Let's say you're trying to go to a concert. You'll say, parents, you should let me go to the concert because A, it's not a school night, so I'll have plenty of time to get sleep tomorrow morning, and B, because I'll be really happy. Those are your two main arguments. In debate, you have the same thing. So on your resolution, you'll have your two contentions, which are like your body paragraphs in an essay. But let's talk about how now we can construct our cases, because knowing what they are is all well and good. It's about knowing how you actually get them. One more thing we'll mention is that in your contentions, you do it in the format of uniqueness, link, and impact. We'll go through that in a second after we, right now, dive into how to choose your framework. Generally, since your framework is super important, you want to choose it in a way that it has meaning, right? You don't want to just throw away your framework and have something like basic or boring. Make sure your framework actually matches your contentions. They need to be like a jigsaw piece that comes together and makes a beautiful painting for your judge to vote for. You can either make your framework first. So if our topic is about whether the US should prioritize the economy over the environment, our framework will probably be like about economic growth. We'll be saying, okay, well, we're valuing justice, and our criterion will be economic growth. And then you'll make two contentions based on that. Alternatively, you can do your contentions first. So let's say I got this topic on the neg. I'm going to say, well, I love the environment because our environment is critical for future generation success, and also because the people who are exploiting the environment are also doing other shady business practices. So I'll say, what framework do I want to do that can encompass both stopping shady business practices and protecting the future generation? Well, I'll say it's justice. And the criterion will be increasing transparency. Sure. Well, basically, it doesn't really matter how you determine your framework as long as it matches well to your contentions. Basically, just decide it on either side. Whatever works best for you works best for you. Generally, I like to make my contentions after I have my framework so that I can make sure they fit for sure. But if it works best for you the other way, do it the other way. Now that that's out of the way, let's go through what's the pretty much most important part of your construction, your contentions, your body paragraphs of the essay. In Lincoln-Douglas debate, we do these in a very specific format that I found works very, very well compared to everything else. That would be the uniqueness, link, impact format. Basically what we're doing with our, it's basically 3 different cards, we'll talk about cards later, 3 different arguments basically that you're making in every contention. First, for your uniqueness, it's different whether you're the AF or the neg. If you're the AF, you'll be proving that right now a problem exists. If you're the neg, you'll be proving that right now a problem does not exist. And your overall picture for the AF is going to be your uniqueness, saying that a problem exists, your link, saying that the resolution fixes the problem, and your impact, showing why we care that the problem is being fixed. On the neg, you're doing the opposite, where you're saying right now a problem doesn't exist, then you're going to use your link to show that in the resolution, in the AF's world, the problem becomes a problem, and then your impact of why it's bad that that problem starts existing. It's kind of hard to understand if you don't have an example, so let's quickly make an example together with the resolution of every block in the city should have a cat shelter on it. So our uniqueness on the AF, we're trying to be defending why every city needs to have a cat shelter. We'll say, well, uniqueness, right now, what's the problem? There are plenty of cats that don't have a family, that aren't being adopted, that are in shelters. So that's going to be our problem. Our link is going to be, well, when people are near cat shelters, when it's easy to adopt a cat, they are more likely to do so. So that's our link, how we're solving the problem. And then the impact of that is that when people have adopted cats, then the cats are happier and the people are happier. So we're increasing happiness. That's a very easy picture I've painted for the judge. And all 3 of those points of evidence, the uniqueness, the link, and the impact, would all have evidence behind them. So you'd need a source saying that. Because it's not like your opponent's not going to trust you if you just say, oh, well, people will adopt cats if it's easy for them to do so. No, you need data for that. Anyway, let's go to the other side. Let's see how the neg would do this. So first, we'll be proving that a problem does not exist right now. We'll say, right now, people who are allergic to cats do not get them. You don't adopt a cat if you're allergic, obviously, right? But then we'll show a link. We'll say, well, actually, if there's a bunch of cat shelters everywhere, people might feel pressured into adopting these cats, even if they are allergic, and pretend I have a really good evidence that actually proves that. And then my impact would be, again, people buying cats when they're allergic to them is bad for them, and it causes allergies, which causes unhappiness. So generally, that's a very easy contention to make. We have our link showing that a problem doesn't exist. Sorry, we have our impact. No. We have our uniqueness showing that a problem doesn't exist. Our link showing that the AF's world makes the problem begin to exist. And our impact showing why we want the problem to not exist, what happens if the problem does exist. Okay, with all those aside, we will now talk about what cards are. You will use a card for each of these link, uniqueness, and impact. Those aren't just things you say, right? We say those in a specific way. We use data in a specific way in Lincoln-Douglas, and that's via cards. So cards are, I don't even know why they're called cards. Kind of think of it like a deck of Magic the Gathering or Hearthstone, where you want to create a powerful deck that will defeat your opponent. And so you put in a bunch of cards that are good and that worked well together. In debate, it's the exact same thing. You take a bunch of cards that work well together, throw them into your case, and boom, you have your contentions. So each card will have a tagline, a citation, and the text itself. Basically, this will be taken from a good journal, an academic journal, a published study, an important figures, quotation, things like that. And I have an example card on this slide for you. So if we look at this slide, this card, this is on a topic about whether the Supreme Court justices should be term limited. The first thing we'll see is that at the top there in bold, we have a tagline, basically saying, a tagline summarizes what the card is about to tell you, so that I read the tagline and the judge knows, okay, that's what I'm looking out for in this card. Basically, it's like a 1-sentence summary of the card or what your card is trying to prove. Then you have the citation. In this case, the citation is an MLA, and I've highlighted specifically the text that I will be saying, which is Joshua 20, right? And then on the card itself, we do the exact same thing. Basically, you can minimize all the text you're not going to say, and you just highlight the text that you are going to speak. So when I'm reading this card, I'll say, the Supreme Court justices have grown out of touch with today's modern generation. They represent only two political ideologies. So, like, I don't have the card in front of me right now, but basically that's what it says. You will read only the highlighted parts, and you'll skip over everything that's not highlighted. Basically what I did there when I was cutting the card is I just highlighted the things that I'm actually going to say, I underlined all the things that are important, and I minimized everything that I'm not directly speaking. You can do it pretty much however you want. Some people would do no underlining. Some people like to also bold things that they're going to say. Some people underline and bold and highlight things that they're going to say. It's up to you formatting wise. Just make sure that you have some sort of visual indicator for what words you did and did not say in your cards that you were running. And again, you'll have one of these cards for your impact, your uniqueness, and your link in every single contention. So that's probably about, sometimes you'll even have more, right? You'll have multiple links so that if your opponent rebuts one of your links, you can still like fall back on a different one. But that's all strategy we'll be talking about in the next video about rebutting. Spoiler alert. Okay, Ivan, that's all well and good. These seem like pretty cool evidences. Cards seem like a good thing. But where do I get the data for these cards? Well, thank you for asking, random person inside my head. In fact, when you need to find evidence for cards, it's pretty simple because there's a lot of stuff out on the internet that's free to use. So if you're looking for things that you need to cite for statistics, then you should look at what's on the screen now. Use Google Scholar, use peer-reviewed academic journals, use published studies, use different PDF documents you found that have like journal articles, interviews, things like that. Anything you need to quote. If you're looking for philosophy and you just need like definitions for philosophy terms, go ahead and use the like Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. They've got definitions of most like philosophical terms. If you just need definitions for the start of your case, go ahead and use Oxford or whatever definitions you want. Generally, you want to make sure that your evidence is valid, like the people who are saying your evidence know what they're talking about. That'll help make sure that you're not getting called out or rebutted, that your opponent's rebuttals aren't made very easy by just saying, my opponent's data doesn't know what they're talking about. All right. So, very last thing, we're going to have an exit ticket for all of you, some homework, if you will. In the comments below, you can see the resolution on the screen right now. In the comments below, go ahead and write a contention. Don't worry about specific evidence. It can be for either side, either the AF or the neg. But make sure you go ahead and write me a contention on the resolution that the resolved, the U.S. ought to ban private schools. Make sure you do it in the correct format, which is starting with your uniqueness, what the problem is, whether the problem exists or not, the link of how the resolution does or does not create the problem, and the impact of why we should care about that. Of course, since I wouldn't make you do something that I wouldn't do myself, I've gone ahead and also made one last example of a contention that you would make on the affirmative for this resolution. So I would say that the uniqueness is that right now, all of the best teachers are being scooped up by private schools where they teach to only private school children. The link is that once we get rid of private schools, these teachers naturally aren't just going to stop working. They'll instead go to the public schools and work there, meaning that the distribution of education will be more fair. That's our impact. Distribution of education is more fair, which is a good thing, blah, 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 framework. Just as a quick side note, if I was making this contention and then I had to pick a framework to pair it with, I would probably say, well, a framework for this would be something about justice or equity or equality, and the criterion, we would probably say that it's about like equalizing schools, because when schools are equal, most of society will follow suit in my idealized world that I can support with blank, 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 evidence, blank, blank. Thank you, Judge. Either way, thank you all very much for watching. You now pretty much know how to make a contention and a framework and a full case for either the AF or the neg side. Generally, try to make sure that your cases only have about 2 contentions, because any more than that, you probably won't have enough time to say it all. Make sure you are timing your cases, by the way, before you bring them to tournaments. That is not a good idea. Do not just bring random 30-minute contentions and cases to tournaments. You will probably lose. Either way, though, look forward to the next episode where we will be diving deep into rebutting, how to rebut specific arguments, how you can turn a case, what does that mean, and all the intrigue will be answered in the next episode. Thank you all very much for watching.